all disease, all chronic inflammatory diseases. Well, is that diabetes? Yes. Well, is that Alzheimer's? Yes. Well, is that Parkinson's? Yes. Well, is that rheumatoid arthritis? Yes. Is that MS? Yes. Is that chronic fatigue? Yes. Is that chemical sensitivity? Yes. All chronic diseases begin in the gut.
The human microbiome is the microbes that cover our outside and our inside. It's the bacteria, the viruses, the fungi in our gut, but also in our skin, on our skin, in our nose, in our mouth, in our eyes, and in our bloodstream. So there's more of them than there are of us.
Are we humans with a lot of bacteria? Or are we bacteria having a human experience? And that sounds kind of weird, but if you look at the numbers, they outnumber us 10 to 1. The bacterial cells in our body 10 times more than the number of human cells. But the genes control function. They outnumber us 100 to 1. Who's modulating? Who's controlling the steering wheel of how our bodies function? It's the bacteria. All of this bacteria together has generated who we are and how we think and how we communicate and how we respond to stress, how we respond to happiness. It's all modulated by our microbiome. When we take care of our microbiomes, we are really happy bodies, functioning well, living life, sleeping well, lots of energy, lots of vitality. When we don't take care of our microbiome, we don't feel good. Translational research, meaning research that changes the way you think, because it's correct and it changes the way you think. The average is 17 years from the time the papers are published before the doc down the street is using the information. 17 years. King's College in London. 1978. I remember it was my first genetics class, and the professor came in holding a paper, just really excited, said, this was just published this week. And it was Alan Ebringer. He was a graduate student at the time, and he was publishing that if you carried the gene HLA-B27, and it's a gene that about a third of the Western population has, if you carry that gene and you get a Klebsiella pneumoniae infection, that's a bacteria. It's the most common cause of pneumonia in hospitals is Klebsiella. So if you have the gene HLA-B27 and a Klebsiella infection, you are at high risk of developing Ankylosing Spondylitis. This was the first paper ever that I'm aware of, and my genetics professor at the time was aware of, demonstrating what's called molecular mimicry. Now, molecular mimicry is one of the more common mechanisms behind the development of autoimmune diseases, where they come from. If you have a Klebsiella infection, your immune system, trying to protect you, goes after that Klebsiella. You make antibodies to Klebsiella. And these antibodies are like special forces. They've got high-powered rifles. You don't mess with these guys. They've been trained. Look for the protein signature of Klebsiella. It's like Klebsiella is wearing an orange vest, and the vest is an amino acid structure, the protein structure. So special forces are going through the bloodstream everywhere looking for an orange vest. It just so happens that the proteins in the surface of the joints in the spine kind of look like orange vests. So if you carry the gene HLA-B27, it looks more like an orange vest. And these special forces going after Klebsiella can start attacking your spine. And you get all this calcium laid in there, all the inflammation as a result of the special forces firing their rifles at your spine because it's got the orange vest. And you get all this calcium in there, and that's ankylosing spondylitis. That was the first, Alan Ebringer's paper, 1978. But now he's published on Proteus, and that's another bacteria, and rheumatoid arthritis. Most every rheumatoid patient we ever work with and we help to turn around, they've got bacterial infections, and the immune system trying to protect you is going after the bacteria, but because of their genes, it also attacks their joints. They get rheumatoid. With MS, there's different bacteria, and you attack myelin. They get MS. So that's called molecular mimicry, and that's one of the more common mechanisms of which autoimmune disease development begins. There's a component of your brain and your nervous system called aquaporin 4. Those fibers in your nerves, aquaporin 4, have a protein signature very similar to the aquaporin 4 in spinach, corn, tomato, and soy. If you have a sensitivity to spinach, corn, tomato, or soy, you are at much higher risk of developing antibodies to aquaporin 4. If you develop antibodies to aquaporin 4, that's your brain and your nervous system, and especially your eyes and your vision. So the number one cause of demyelinating diseases in the Far East is neuromyelitis optica. Well, what do they eat a lot of in the Far East? Spinach and soy. And the studies show over 75% of people with neuromyelitis optica have antibodies to spinach or soy. So your immune system isn't making a mistake in autoimmune diseases most of the time. It's trying to protect you. The question is, what's it trying to protect you from? And when you do the tests, you see, oh my gosh, I didn't know that I have this sensitivity to wheat. I mean, I feel fine when I eat wheat. We do the test and you've got sky-high antibodies to wheat. You get off of wheat and all of a sudden, your brain's working better. You're sleeping better. Your joint pains are gone. Your thyroid antibodies go down to normal. That's why this whole world of gluten sensitivity has come about, because it's not the wheat that's the problem. It's the molecular mimicry that can occur in your body, because those symptoms can be anywhere. There is a very famous scientist. His name is Professor Alessio Fasano. He just came out with a new paper. The title of the paper, All Disease Begins in the Leaky Gut. And then he just goes through the science of the mechanisms that when you have this intestinal permeability, macromolecules, big molecules, get through into the bloodstream. So let's do this. Mrs. Patient, your intestines are a tube. The tube starts in your mouth, it goes to the other end, kind of winds around in the center there. It's about 20, 25 feet long. The inside of the tube is lined with cheesecloth. It's a tube. So when you swallow food, it's inside the tube. It's not in your body. It's inside the tube. The food has to be broken down into really, really small pieces. That's digestion, to go through the cheesecloth to get into the bloodstream. Now your body can use the vitamins and the minerals and the proteins to make new cells. After these tiny little fuel pieces can get through, they get broken down, so they can get through the cheesecloth into the bloodstream. What happens when you get tears in the cheesecloth? Bigger molecules get through before they've been broken down small enough. They're called macromolecules. And your immune system says, wait a minute, what's that? That's not something I can make new brain cells with or bone cells. I better fight that. Now you make antibodies to tomatoes or to chicken or to raspberries or to really good foods. And your doctor does a 90 food panel. It comes back and you're sensitive to 25 foods. He says, oh my God, that's everything I eat. Well, of course it is. Your immune system's trying to protect you, right? There's nothing wrong with your immune system. So what do? Stop eating the foods right now so that you don't throw more gasoline on the fire throughout your body, and heal the tears in the cheesecloth. Heal the intestinal permeability. We're getting close to it being more accepted now in everyday practice about intestinal permeability. I still sometimes come up against gastroenterologists who say there's no such thing as leaky gut. And I'll say, well, if you go to PubMed, that's the National Library of Medicine, and just type in leaky gut, you will find over 13,000 articles. Are they all wrong? So the development of autoimmune diseases, by and far, the vast majority of them require 5 things. a genetic vulnerability to that particular condition, an inflamed microbiome. The good bacteria of your gut, not enough, too much of the bad bacteria, lots of inflammation there, causing tears in the cheesecloth, intestinal permeability, causing the macromolecules to get through into the bloodstream, your immune system trying to protect you, fighting those macromolecules, and then your immune system attacking your own tissue. All disease begins in the leaky gut.
So if you have this permeability,